Carolina Barbecue Festival's 5th anniversary will be the Queen City's biggest barbecue party yet. 30 pitmasters, 3 big events, and it all gets started with the barbecue brunch, Brisket and Biscuits. Expert barbecue pitmasters team up with Charlotte's top chefs to create a curated food event in partnership with Savor Charlotte. Brisket and Biscuits, March 28th at Town Brewing in Charlotte. Reserve your tickets right now at carolinabbqfest.org. To discover other features in Savor Charlotte's March culinary adventure, visit the Eat and Drink menu at charlottesgotalot.com. One of the featured chefs at the barbecue brunch is Chris Coleman, executive chef at the Goodyear House in Charlotte's Nodon neighborhood. Food Network fans will know Chris is champion from Chopped. He beat Bobby Flay, and he's appeared on Super Chef Grudge Match and Guys Grocery Games. Well, foodies around Charlotte know him as part of the Built-On Hospitality group of restaurants. It includes the Goodyear House, Chief's Modern Cocktail Parlor in Noda. South End, there's Folia, and finally Old Town Kitchen and Cocktails in Rock Hill. He's been featured at Charlotte Wine and Food, and most recently, he was among Charlotte chefs spotlighted at the James Beard House in New York City, and yet he's agreed to join our barbecue podcast. Chris, welcome to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
And now that I've kind of covered some of your CV there, how would you like to introduce yourself to an audience of food fans out there?
Yeah, thanks again for having me. Like I said, my name is Chris Coleman. I'm a Charlotte native, born and raised here. So Charlotte, I like to say we're kind of right in the middle of Eastern and Western style barbecue here in the state of North Carolina. So, but grew up cooking with my mom, spending summers down on my grandparents' farm in Mississippi, and that's kind of where I got an appreciation of what it takes to put food on the table. They were farmers. They had cattle, and we rode horses, and they had a couple of giant blueberry trees and a pecan orchard, and they would trade beef for eggs or chicken or butter beans or whatever it might be. So just kind of fell in love with cooking then. Went to school here in Charlotte at Central Piedmont Community College, which has an amazing culinary program. After high school. I started working in restaurants when I was 14 and kind of fell in love with it and didn't know what else I was going to do. So might as well, go take some culinary classes, and one thing led to the next. I became a chef at a restaurant here in town called McNinch House when I was 21 years old. Was named executive chef there and ran that restaurant for 9 years. And really kind of figured out who I was in the kitchen and who I wanted to be. From there, I went on to the Dunhill Hotel where I opened up the Asbury. Worked with a bunch of chefs who have kind of gone on to make names for themselves in the Charlotte scene. So super proud to have started that. And then was tapped to be the culinary director at the Marriott at Trade and Tryon, right in the heart of Uptown Charlotte. And we launched 6 new food and beverage outlets at the same time in that hotel, and worked really closely with the executive chef of Marriott Global. And so that was a pretty cool outlet. And then joined with my partners, AJ Klink and Sean Potter, to step away from the Marriott and open up the Goodyear House in Charlotte. Back in 2020, we opened up about a month and a half prior to the pandemic shutdown, and
perfect timing.
Perfect timing to open a restaurant and reopen as soon as we possibly could. And then from there, we've added on. It was Old Town first in Rock Hill, and then it was Folia in October of 24 in South End, and then Chiefs in January of 25. So four locations. We've done a couple of other things in the interim that aren't open anymore, but those four are going strong and we're having fun. So,
Yeah, it's part of the
yeah,
business. Now, before we get too much further here, we got
sure.
to talk barbecue. You
Yeah, let's
said
do it.
Charlotte between the east and the west, kind of right between.
Right.
Where does Chris fall on barbecue?
I really am a mutt. I like both, and I like both for different reasons. So I like the whole hog tradition of Eastern a lot, but I do like a little bit of ketchup in my vinegar sauce. So I kind of like the Lexington style.
Hmm.
I'm a huge fan of Honey Monk of Lexington Number One. I think it's the best barbecue in the state, in my opinion. I like the coarse chop.
Hmm.
I think that, growing up, my dad's from New York, my mom's from Mississippi. So I didn't have a real, tie to either style and didn't really know, or think about what barbecue could be. Because for us growing up, it was just like, we'd go to Sonny's or something, right? And I was in high school, and in ninth grade, I was running cross country, and we were going up to Winston-Salem to compete in the state. Um, the state championship at Wake Forest, and our coach loved Lexington barbecue, and so he made us stop on the way back in Lexington, and he took us all in to eat, and he said, you got to get it coarse, you got to get some of the bark on there. And one bite, and I was hooked. I was like, "This is a revelation! Like, where is this barbecue been my entire life?" So I'm definitely a North Carolina guy, and like I said, I like both styles a lot. I think they both add something to the table. And then, we're close to South Carolina and Charlotte. I like a little mustard every now and then too. So I'm kind of, being in Charlotte, we're surrounded by three, awesome kind of barbecue traditions. And I like to pick and choose from all of
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Well, as somebody that's come up in that tradition and has an opinion on all three and a
Yeah.
good mutt sensibility about it,
Yeah.
what do you think about this Texas invasion that seems to be continuing in a trend?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you that, I love pork. I'm a Carolina guy. I was
Hmm.
born and raised here. I love pork. But it's really hard to beat a good brisket. Like, it's really
That's right.
hard to beat a good salt and pepper brisket. Really simple, nothing on it. I mean, I think there's a few guys around in our area that do it pretty well. Um, and it's pretty good. I like the simplicity of it. I like that it is. Um, you can't mask anything, right? It is just like you got to be really good in the pit and know what you're doing when you're just going to season with salt and pepper and let smoke do its thing. So, as a chef, I respect what a good pit master can do.
A great non-political answer, but one I
Yeah.
can certainly appreciate there. Now, Chris, you guys at the Goodyear House are getting involved in the Carolina Barbecue Festival kind of for the
Yeah.
second year. We got a chance to meet you at the kickoff last year. For people who don't know the Goodyear House, introduce people to it. What can folks expect when they visit your place in Nodine?
Yeah, so we're unlike any other restaurant in Charlotte in terms of our setting. So we took an old mill home. We're in the Noda area of Charlotte, and if you're not familiar with the area, it used to be called North Charlotte and was home to three different textile mills. So there was all these small little like bungalow type houses built around the mills that were built for the mill workers, and so. We took one of them right across the street from the Johnston Y and kind of turned it into this sprawling complex of a restaurant with, a huge backyard patio and kind of a bar that's built off the restaurant, a kind of covered pergola area, and it's just like we got a bocce courts for the kids and stuff. So it's really, we kind of became an instant neighborhood classic, and that's one thing we're proud of. I'm a chef, so I want it to be a little chefy, but I'm very proud of the fact that we're a neighborhood restaurant, and we're there 7 days a week for obviously birthdays, anniversaries, and special occasions, but just a good dinner on a Monday or Tuesday night, we got you covered as well. So I like to say we have a Southern backbone, but we'll cook whatever we want to, and we kind of bring in traditions from whatever we're eating and whatever we want to eat every day. Like, we try to make food that we want to eat every day. And the saying has always been, what would your grandmother have cooked if she'd gone to culinary school. And that's kind of the approach we take with the menu is it's comfort food. It's food that means something. Sourced from like the farmers and the friends that we know in the area, and doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah, I love that. And by the way, I go to the goodyearhouse.com and I see that kids eat free every Tuesday with paying
That's
adults. So
That's
that's
right.
something I could definitely appreciate
Yeah.
with two kids. So that's cool, family friendly on a Tuesday night. What about the name? Doesn't have anything to do with the tires. That's the first thing I think about. Goodyear
Yeah,
Rubber Company.
yeah, it doesn't. And that, we get that a lot. No, the Goodyear House, the name stems from a story that my business partner AJ Klink read about homes that were built in and around, right before the Depression, and specifically kind of rural homes in the South and the Midwest. And these were folks who had scraped just enough together to build or to buy a small home, and then the Depression hits, and then they spend years recovering from that, right? And so, as the economy recovered, as the country recovered, they were able to recover a little bit. And if they had a good year, meaning the crops came in, or you had a baby or something like that, then the house would change a little bit. So you had a good year, you could add on a new barn. You can add on a second room. If you had a baby coming, maybe you tear down that old barn and use the wood to, build an addition to your home for the baby to have, a nursery. So it's this tradition of these homes and these houses, and you can see them all over the South and the Midwest, that started small, and then you can kind of see, well, they added that on, and then they added that on, and then they added that on. And he loved that idea as a metaphor for Charlotte and for Noda. And, these homes have stood for 120 years now, and they've been kind of added on, and Charlotte and Noda in general have taken, all the change that's come over 120 years and kind of meandered and found themselves where they're at now in the 2020s. So, so it's really just kind of a nonsensical romantic title, but it's got some meaning to it.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of sense in that. That gives it meaning, and that's great. And I wonder, how does that sort of line of thinking fit into the Built on Hospitality brand? As you've added on 4 restaurants since you started in 20, or I guess 3 since you started in 2020. Do you have kind of that same mindset? We have a good year, and let's try to venture out and do something different.
We do. We definitely do. And it's interesting because the first restaurant, Goodyear, is in an old mill home. The second restaurant is in an old actual mill. The third restaurant is in an old 1920s warehouse. And then the fourth restaurant, Chiefs, is in the mill home right next to Goodyear House. So we love history. We love taking things that, Charlotte is pretty quick to kind of sometimes tear down history. And so we love taking things that are old and trying to breathe new life into them. And yeah, to answer your question, Goodyear, once we opened the second time after the pandemic, had a fantastic first year. So we kind of said, well, let's strike while the iron's hot and open up Old Town. And we had the opportunity to do that. And then 2023 was a banner year for a lot of restaurants. So we started planning, well, what's next? And that's when the plans for Folia and Chiefs kind of came along. And it took us a while to get there, to get those open. But, we have Goodyear. Let's invest in the restaurant and or in the restaurant group, and build something, and, bring people on, and promote people from within, and kind of just, build this thing out and see what we can do with it.
And of course, Chris is one of the guest chefs at Brisket and Biscuits, the Carolina Barbecue Festival barbecue brunch coming up March 28th at Town Brewing Company in Charlotte. It's part of this year's Charlotte Savor program. You can get all the details about Charlotte Savor at charlottesgotalot.com. And for more on Brisket and Biscuits, just visit carolinabbqfest.org. That's where you can also buy your tickets. Be sure to use the promo code LOW and SLOW. You'll get a discount. And that event features a lineup of Charlotte chefs and pitmasters, 6 tasting stations spread across the brewing company's location there in Wesley Heights. There's going to be tasting plates and drinks, music, everything you want in a barbecue brunch on a perfect Saturday, 11 a.m. 3 till 3 p.m., March 28th. And again, Chris Coleman is in that lineup of chefs and pit masters. So Chris, let me talk a little bit about your culinary journey. You gave us you're really a great introduction there, but I want to talk about the farm to the fork concepts. You hear that kind of in your experience in Mississippi, and you can definitely see it in your menu items. Why is it so important to you to try to continue those types of traditions?
Yeah, I think for me, I really got turned on to the local farming scene and here in the Charlotte area probably 10 years ago or so. It was right at the same time, and maybe a little bit longer than that, but I was at McMinch House as the chef and was introduced to a guy who was making sorghum syrup, and
Mm-hmm.
started reading more about that, and then was at the same time introduced to Carolina Gold rice for the first time. So I'd say sorghum syrup and Carolina Gold rice is really what kicked it off for me. Is like, oh, okay, we can buy like the same stuff that my grandparents would grow or their neighboring farms would have, that we grew up eating at home. I can buy for the restaurant, right? And
Yeah.
I can like turn these into really cool, kind of chefy dishes, using these kind of homey ingredients. And obviously the food tastes better when it's grown right down the street because it
Mm-hmm.
can stay on the vine a little bit longer, so it's going to be super ripe when it gets to you. So you have the flavor, but for me, it's important because it's history and tradition. We already spoke a little bit about our love of history as a group, but we're a agricultural area. We're super rich in agriculture in this area, and some of
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of going by the wayside, and we need to invest if we want local food that's not monopolized by the ConAgras of the world. We need to invest in keeping these farms alive, and so that's one way to do it. But then it's just we're investing in our economy, right? If I'm giving money to the farmer down the street instead of the giant big box supplier
Mm-hmm.
who's spreading that money out to California, Mexico, and wherever, then I know that the farmer down the street is going to have food on his table. He's going to be able to put a backpack on his kid's back,
Mm-hmm.
and he's going to turn around, or she, and invest that money back into their own economies as well. So it's all, for me, it's a little political because it stays here. I'm helping support my neighbors and my economy, and then again that history and that tradition of it.
You mentioned the sorghum and the rice, and I kind of think about South Carolina in some of those cases. Charlotte's a big city, but you don't have to go too far out from city center to start seeing some rural areas in Lincoln County, Gaston County, certainly
Yeah.
down in some of the others. Where are you getting the food from? Any of your partners you want to call out?
Yeah, so we source directly from about 7 or 8 farms, depending on the season of the year.
Mm-hmm.
We love Shipley Farms. They're up in Boone, so they're a little bit further away, but they're up in Boone. We get all of our beef from them. We get a lot of produce from Boy and Girl Farm down in Waxhaw, from Isaac at Harmony Ridge up in Tobaccoville, which is near Winston-Salem.
Mm-hmm.
And then Fair Share, they're also near Winston-Salem. We have relationships with some local fishermen to bring in fresh shrimp and bring in fresh fish from the coast. We get bread from Verdant Bakery here in Charlotte. And then there's a giant company, not giant as in like giant, but giant as in a lot of restaurants use them, called Fresh List. And I'm really good friends with those guys. And they are the middleman supplier for small farms to small restaurants. So depending on the season, they will work with anywhere from 40 to 60 farms across North Carolina. They send out a list on Sunday. You place your order Tuesday. The farmers pick it and pack it Tuesday night into Wednesday. It's on your shelves in your kitchen on Thursday. So it's a pretty cool way to kind of streamline as when I started at the Asbury back in 2014, I was working with 20 farms directly, and I'd have to remember, like, okay, I got to text this person by Tuesday at 10, this person by Tuesday at 2, and this person by Wednesday at 3. And, every farm was a little different. Now I can text the few that we still work with directly, and then send one email or one text to Fresh List, and they'll help me out, and it keeps the farmers in the field, keeps them doing what they do best, and they don't have to drive into Charlotte or drive wherever, dropping off all day. So it's a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, definitely a very cool concept. I invite folks to learn more about it there on the interwebs. And I know that that's sort of a driving force. I can hear that in your voice, that is part of the Built on Hospitality brand. And I know for the past 5 years, that's kind of been the focus. How has your role as a chef and partner now in multiple restaurants really kind of changed since those early experiences you mentioned there at the Asbury, in the Market Kitchen, and even at downtown Charlotte?
Yeah, it's as I'm more of a culinary director than I am a chef these days. I still do occasionally get into the kitchen from time to time, but I spend a lot more time these days kind of managing HR and managing my chefs. We hire a chef at each one of our concepts to run it, and we try to empower them and say, this is your
Mm-hmm.
this is your baby to run, and I have oversight on menu and creation and R&D and all of that. But I really try to let them, grow into being chefs with some guidance. And the food scene in Charlotte has completely changed in the last
Yeah.
even 5 years since Goodyear House has opened. So I spend a lot more time working on the business than in the business. However, I'm still recovering from this past weekend with Valentine's Day. So, my back is hurting and my feet are tired. So, so I'd say that those early years, I was behind a stove every single day, and now I'm not as much, and now I get to do fun things like participate in barbecue festivals and do that kind of stuff, TV and that kind of stuff. So so it's changed, but for the better. I don't think any one of my guys wants me in the kitchen on the line on a Friday night anymore. So I just get in the way. I'm old and tired.
Well, Valentine's Day would leave you sore even on a night,
Yeah.
kind of pitching in and helping out. You probably
Right.
don't want it every day anymore.
Right.
You mentioned the Charlotte food scene there. Tell me what your thoughts are about it and how it has changed over the past 5 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've been, here pretty much my whole life, and my whole working life I've been in Charlotte, and um, we've seen waves and we've seen ebbs and flows and the food scene here, where it will have, when I started my career, it was a steakhouse city, and we had some chefs doing some small restaurants that were kind of bubbling up around the fringes, doing kind of the first chef driven restaurants. And that was cool
Mhm.
as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old to kind of just watch and idolize and rub elbows occasionally with these guys and girls. Um, and then, that kind of fell off and some of the big corporations came back in. And then we get to 2014, 15, and that's kind of when the class of chefs that I'm a part of really took over and made Charlotte kind of a special place to work. And
Mm.
there was a ton of chef-driven restaurants. There was a ton of people investing in local chefs and local restaurants, and really started to get some buzz around Charlotte. And then that allowed rents to start going up a little bit because we were making everything super popular and super hot, and so now the corporate guys are coming back in,
Mm.
and so it's like this. It's just up and down and ebbs and flows and waves of corporate versus independent or mom and pop shops, and I think that it's a very exciting time to be in the Charlotte food scene because there are a lot of chefs who are starting restaurant groups. A lot of us who were kind of the independent guys 10 years ago now are starting groups or are part of groups or managing groups. And so we get to do a little bit more and kind of bring concepts to life, which is cool. There's the mid-size corporate guys that are coming in that are bringing some cool concepts to Charlotte. And then there's a whole class of new chefs who are up and coming and doing kind of the pop-up scene thing with,
Mm.
they'll pop up at a bar, or they'll pop up in a backyard somewhere and sell ridiculous tacos for $5 a pop, and that's kind of cool to be a part of.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned kind of a class of chefs that came out. Were they from Central Piedmont Community College or Johnson and Wales, or all of the above and additionals?
I think all of the above and additional. I mean, we had a lot of people come into Charlotte from the outside. From Charlotte has always been a transplant city. We've with banking and energy comes people who are moving here for opportunity, and so we've had a lot of people come from within the state, from up north, from down south. I'm just thinking through the chefs that kind of I came up with at the same time, and there's guys from New York, there's a guy from Alabama, there's people from Georgia, there's a couple of chefs who came down here after graduating from NC State at Raleigh. So it's and then there's a couple of contemporaries who graduated with me from Central Piedmont Community College, or who went to JWU here and are making a name for themselves or have. So it's we're just like I'm kind of a mutt in the barbecue world, and I like it all. We're kind of a mutt of a city. We have a lot of people from all over the place who chose to make this home.
I think it's starting to get more and more attention, in which it deserves it. I want to talk a little bit about the future, but before I do, I got to talk about the Food Network stuff. I know it's been a little while since then, but tell me about that experience and what you enjoyed and maybe what wasn't so great about it.
It was by and large that like 4 years where I kind of just was doing shows back to back to back. It was by and large a great experience, a great opportunity. And I haven't done one in a while, but I think that season in my life might be over. I was approached and asked if I would want to do Chopped. That was the first one. And that was the one that I, as a 20-year-old, get off of work and come home and turn it on and kind of watch and say, man, I'd love to do that. If I ever got an opportunity to do that show, I'd love to do it. And then I got that opportunity and went on and won, which is kind of crazy. And so then the producers from B. Bobby Flay called and asked if I wanted to do that, and went on there and won, and then was asked to come back on Chopped for a Champions thing, and didn't do so great on that one. But I tell folks all the time that it is cooking and it is competition, but at the end of the day, these folks are just trying to make good television, right? They want to make a really good program that people are going to tune into. So if you either are very good at what you do, or meaning you win, or you're very good, an awesome personality, you're going to come back on. And that happened. I did Alex versus America and Guys Grocery Games and Super Chef Grudge Match. And, once you do one, you kind of get called back to do them all. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, the cooking is what you see on television. It's there's no tricks or anything. The time is real. If it's 20 minutes to cook a dish, you've got 20 minutes to cook a dish. And the people that I met along the way are all awesome. I met some producers who worked on all the different shows, and it was kind of cool to catch up with them, and met some competitors that I still keep in touch with. So it's a lot of fun. The one thing that I don't want to say that I didn't enjoy, but Guys Grocery Games is the hardest one to do, because it's an actual grocery store. I mean, it is a studio for filming a TV show, but they built a grocery store in the middle of this production lot, and it is like, I don't know if you're a Harris Teeter guy or a Food Liner guy or wherever, but it's not like running through an Aldi. You are running through a giant grocery store with a buggy, and they say go and the clock starts, and you have no idea where anything is, and you're running around trying to find stuff, and that was the hardest one. So but it was it was a lot of fun.
It gives you new respect for going to grocery shop, right?
It does. Yeah. For sure.
Well, before we wrap it up and talk a little bit about the barbecue brunch here to kind of close us out, because we do want to talk about that. Can you look into the crystal ball and tell us maybe what's coming down the line for Chris or maybe for Built on Hospitality?
Yeah, so I mean, with us, with Built on Hospitality, we have signed on with the Beckworth Hotel, which is going to be a really cool, unique boutique hotel in Charlotte that opens
Mm.
up in October of 2026 this year. Um, and we have signed on to do the food and beverage for the entire property. So it's 4 restaurants, um, 4 new concepts that we get to bring to life, and I'm super excited for that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be everything from a sandwich and salad kind of cafe spot to a rooftop bar with small plates. It's kind of we get to stretch our legs and have some fun with some like Pacific Rim cuisine. So
Cool.
we get to do a little bit of it all, and I'm super excited for that opportunity.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, back
Yeah,
to brunch. Now I know you
back to
guys have a,
brunch.
a brunch menu at
Right.
the Goodyear House. Tell me,
Yeah.
what does it take to be good for a brunch menu item? What should a brunch include?
Well, so brunch, you're gonna go 2 ways with brunch, right? So one is like for a lot of us, it's the start to the day, right? It's the
Mm,
start to a day, and so you want something that is, um, going to be filling and hearty, but not weigh you down, and something that's going to kick off your day in a right way. Now, 15 years ago, it was also the meal you ate when you were maybe a little hungover. So you want something that's a little fatty and decadent
mhm,
and
mhm.
maybe a little less fresh and a little less healthy. And you do want something that's just going to like kind of calm everything going on down
Right.
below. But it should be good. It should be tasty. Hot food should be hot, cold. It's just like any other thing, but it can be a little more decadent and a little more fun at brunch because, it's brunch.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
kind of as we wrap up, how did you guys get involved with Carolina Barbecue Festival? And tell us a little bit about that and why you do it.
Yeah, I do it because of Lewis Donald. I love Lewis. I've known Lewis for probably 15 years now, and excited that he was bringing some really good barbecue to the city when he opened up Sweet Lou's, and whatever he asks, I will do. I love that guy, and was so excited to be asked to be a part of the kickoff party last year. Excited to partner up with Matt Register for the biscuits and briskets this year. I love Matt to death too. I met him a few years ago and got to do a dinner with him last year at
Mm.
Euphoria Food Festival in Greenville, and I love Matt Register too. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Have you thought about what you guys are going to cook up?
Yeah, so actually just talked with Matt today. We're gonna do blackened fish and grits with a little tartar sauce vinaigrette. It's something that we do at the restaurant, the tartar vinaigrette. And so kind of a lightly smoked, seared blackened catfish over some really creamy grits, and kind of a very vibrant, punchy, herby tartar sauce vinaigrette, and it should be fun. It's something that screams brunch for sure.
Yeah, well, breaking news coming here about the menu
Yeah,
coming up. So,
yeah.
Chris, you've been super generous with your time today, answering all my questions. I wonder if you might take a moment to talk about something that you want to talk about.
Yeah. So we are also doing something at Goodyear. A quick shameless plug for us, I guess. We're doing something at Goodyear House as part of the Savor programming as well. 2 days before the barbecue brunch on the 26th, I'm hosting some of the best chefs in Charlotte. We've got Andreas Kiefer from Custom Shop, Sam Diminich from Restaurant Constance, Vince Giancarlo from B-Side, and Christian Valavazzo from Carnal, one of those pop-up guys I was talking about earlier, to do a backyard cookout at Goodyear House. This is the first time announcing it, actually. It's just hot off the presses here. We'll be launching tickets to that later this week, so check out Goodyear House, our open table for that. But should be a lot of fun, super casual, beers in the backyard, cooking off of our smoker and off of our grills, and gonna be a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like a fantastic time. And so, Chris, between an event, a couple days before another event, and
Yeah.
events you're in, and restaurants and new projects with multiple restaurants involved, what keeps your fire burning? Why do you keep doing this?
I love food, man. I've always loved food. I love to eat it. I love to cook it. Much to the chagrin of my wife, I think about it all the time. And, I love the camaraderie that comes along with doing events like this, and hanging out with chef buddies. And, it's a little selfish. I like to, you get a little, as a chef, a little instant gratification when you see a clean plate come back into the dish pit, or you do a table touch and you get to talk to a guest about their experience. That's a high that's unlike anything else. So that's the reason. It's fun. I love providing hospitality. It's in our name, built on hospitality. And yeah, I just do it because, again, at the same time, I don't know what else I'd be doing.
And that, my friends, is a final word from Chris Coleman, Executive Chef at the Goodyear House and partner in the Built on Hospitality Restaurant Group. You can meet him at Brisket and Biscuits coming up March 28th at Town Brewing Company in Charlotte. Barbecue Brunch is presented in conjunction with Savor Charlotte and charlottesgotalot.com. Tickets on sale now at carolinabbqfest.org. Keep your eyes peeled at the Goodyear House for those tickets for the big event they've got going on, a big backyard barbecue. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, sponsored by the Carolina Barbecue Festival, April 17th through 18th in Charlotte's Victoria Yards. Reserve your tickets for the Carolina Barbecue Festival today, carolinabbqfest.org. Use the promo code Low and Slow for a discount. All caps, all one word, Low and Slow, you get the discount. To our audience, thank you for listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. If you like what you hear, share our podcast with your food-loving friends, and please give us a 5-star rating on your favorite stream. For more interviews with pitmasters and chefs with the Carolina Barbecue Festival and the Barbecue Brunch, be sure to visit lowslowbbqshow.com. We've got a blog with festival and event details. You can also sign up for our weekly newsletter and get the barbecue news and fundraisers, food truck schedules, all that every week in your email inbox. The Low and Slow Barbecue Show is proud to be a part of the Mesh.tv network of podcasts. That's where our producer, Andrew Moose, makes us sound good every episode. Thank you so much, Mr. Moose. Join us again next time when we share more pitmaster stories, recipes, and advice on the best barbecue you can find in the land, from the farm to the fire to your plate. For the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, I'm Trigger Willard, reminding you that for the best barbecue and the best barbecue podcast, make it low and slow.